Hello everyone, welcome to Cribwolf Talks. My name is Lino, host of Cribwolf Talks. For those tuning in for the first time, the Intentional Community Consortium, the ICC, held a housing conference with various members of our federal government in our nation's capital, Ottawa, Canada, on March 2024. The Cribwolf Talks production team captured the entire two-day ICC housing conference on video for our viewing audience. The ICC housing conference was initiated with the purpose of collaboration with members of Parliament, senators, and ICC members to discuss the housing shortage with reference to the National Housing Strategy. On today's episode, we will showcase two members of the ICC who presented at the ICC Housing Conference. Our first presenter is Bryan, who is President and CEO of Rena, a significant service provider for individuals with developmental disabilities throughout the Greater Toronto Area. And next to speak is David Petkau, Executive Director, South District for Karis Disability Services, formerly known as Christians Horizons.
So, really appreciate that presentation. CMHC and the fact that we have a strategy at all nationally is a huge success. The fact that we were able to influence it to include developmental disabilities is tremendous. It's the first time ever in the history in terms of Canadian strategy that it's articulated and put into plan. What we haven't done is utilized it to its maximum. We haven't taken advantage of every opportunity, nor has it been structured to achieve the maximum that we can get. Part of that is beginning an aggressive dialogue with our partners. CMHC is a partner. They're open to hearing. We experienced really positive discussions when we brought people who make decisions to the sites we work in, where they could see how people live and why we're putting together the proposals we did. So when we negotiated this issue of bed or unit, CMHC underwriters and the policy team do understand the difference. It's not articulated in anything written, but you can have that conversation where you can say a bed is a unit. And the way we're supporting people in the deep affordability allows you to do it. And there's someone to hear that. There's flexibility, as Jeremy mentioned, in terms of looking at affordability versus other aspects of the design. So we have partners there. There isn't enough resources, but there is a partner there. So a little bit, we jumped right to that. Okay. A little bit about Rena. So Rena, 50 years old, started off with a group of families, deinstitutionalization, started with 2 group homes. Today we have 835 employees, 36 locations, 2 apartment buildings, a third one on its way. We have models that go from children's homes through to 164 people in SIL, in all sorts of mixed units, everything from community housing to private dwellings. We own 7 condo units in older condo buildings or converted condo buildings. So we have 2 long-term care type relationships, or seniors homes, we call them. We have 7 partnerships with long-term care facilities. So we really have a gamut of service. We're about to build our second complex care home, and I'll describe it briefly. So we have a little bit of experience with housing, and we have a lot of challenges, because when we look at the reality of what's happening in the sector, it's a 40-year minimum wait, statistically. That's what we're looking at. I always, given Jewish background, I call it the Moses syndrome. You walk through the desert looking for a place to call home, and it's not till you die do your children find a place to live, which is horrific. A horrific way for a parent to struggle through their lives. And we need to demand that shouldn't happen, and that people equitably and fairly have access. And right now, There's no structure built into any of the stuff that creates that equitable human rights perspective. So most of us wouldn't want our kids not to have a home when they're 30, 40, 50, but most of us are experiencing people coming into our sector who are that age and who are in crisis. So the two major areas I want to cover is Rena's work right now with developing, building, and managing homes. Like I said, we have a whole range. And then we're also dealing with the sustainability and what we call greening, Rena, trying to create some sustainability to our system and improve our housing, amongst other things. And the sustainability isn't only environmental, it's beyond that. I want to also comment that philosophically, the way we go about things is we talk about, it's sort of Hillel's concept. You have to be a self-advocate. If I'm not for myself, no one else will speak up for me. So I have to start with what my needs are. And often we look at the people we support and what their needs are, and that's where we start. We come up with solutions. But that's not good enough. If that's all you are, if all you're doing is taking care of yourself, you are not part of society, you're not social beings. So you have to go beyond. So Hillel, in his quote, says, after that, if I'm only for myself, what am I? I have to be for something greater. And then you start to work on what is it greater. And the collective effort here is that greater effort. And lastly, Hillel says, if you don't do it now, when else will it happen? These are things that we collectively need to do. We can't do it just for ourselves, and we have to do it for others as we learn it and self-advocate, but don't stop self-advocating. So a little bit, we'll move on to, this is a project we're doing. It's a 7-unit complex care home. And when I talk about complexity, we're talking about people who've been hospitalized for years, people who are in restraints and in controls, who have lived, at least one case, some guy we're working with 5 years with restraints on throughout that period, maybe an hour or two a day where he was not under restraint, who's going to move into a neighborhood home. But what you don't see inside is the complexity of design and controls, features. So each unit in this house will have a bedroom, a den, and a washroom, a private space the individual can control, manage, and live in. There will be the walls, the features are all designed so they're almost impossible to break or destroy. So if someone's feeling they need to hit a wall, hit the wall. Nothing will happen to it, but it'll look like any other house or space that you would live in. We built our first one, and the individuals who moved into that first home had almost daily incidents of self-injurious behavior or acting out. They moved into that home, and we have had none over 3 years. None. Because the environment gave everyone a sense of confidence and comfort and safety. This kind of building is a $5.4 million enterprise between the land and the development and the design and the features that are in this building. Nowhere in CMHC is there a pathway to cover $5.4 million of project. Well, thank you very much. $35,000 seed funding as a grant. I think we got 150 or something. VG will correct me. In loan, no, thank you. I don't want the loan because I got to now apply and do all sorts of stuff, and the bank needs guarantee, all sorts of stuff. We said no, thank you. We've taken on the project internally and now applying at best for $75,000 a door. Well, those doors aren't, or those units aren't the same cost as other buildings. And there's no amount that other levels of government are stepping in to meet that. So that's one example of our initiatives. It took 4 years to develop that and some stuff. This project is the apartment building. We're building an apartment building. It's 111 units, but it has some major features that most apartment buildings and developers aren't including. Number one is B3 fire safety standards. And Gary alluded to it. It's one of the biggest issues for our sector. Those that are familiar with Participation House Markham, they are about to lose 6 units in public apartment buildings, rental units, because they brought in care to help the people who live there. The second they brought in care, the fire department treated it as care occupancy. Therefore, the building needed to have improvements to fire code. The owner said, "Oh, I'm willing to do some unit changes, add in some fire suppression systems into the unit." Went to the city to apply to put that in. The city said, "Well, then you have to be rezoned as a care occupancy building." $1.5 million it would cost the owner of that building. Guess who lost out? The 6 people. They're being kicked out of their home. So we don't have any, and very few builders are building care occupancy standard from a fire safety point of view. It doesn't take much, but it takes some forethought. So this building has that, which means that people can live there for life. They can age in place. They can live there with all sorts of disabilities or abilities, a whole range of people. Seniors will live there. We have people with brain injury. We have people with physical disabilities who will move in, people with intellectual disabilities, mental health transitions, but a whole diverse. That project took us 8 years in development, early stages of buying land, assembling it, and will be built and completed by 2026. 2026. Right? Yeah. Early 2026. So, Reena, renewable energy. Here's where opportunities are missing. We as a sector haven't pulled together a strategy to advance the energy access. So there are a whole bunch of offerings given to private businesses. They can develop or add some energy efficiencies and they get tax rebates. Well, we don't pay tax, so we don't get those rebates. So what do we get? How do we get the resources to match up or make it incentives to do these sort of things? We're not given any. So we looked at trying to do a plan. We targeted a 10-year return on investment as our strategy. And right now going out looking for a funder to allow us to meet that 10-year renewable cycle. But it's just an example of trying to do it across the system. I know others have successfully done it. But so as a barrier, I'll give you a weird barrier about this. Hydro has to approve your giving back the energy to the system. What if they don't, right? If you're creating solar and they don't, right? Then you're going to invest in batteries and putting in all sorts of system, all because you want to participate in energy efficiency and don't get those incentives, those pathways. I think it should be an accepted standard for nonprofits doing supportive social housing should be able to have by right the access to the energy grid and be able to contribute back without a question. Shouldn't even have to apply. Just tell them you're doing it and accept it. And go on to the next one. Unfunded repairs. I want to talk about this because we talked about the National Housing Strategy includes funding to the province for repairs. So you can go directly to CMHC, as Jeremy mentioned, accessing some repairs, renovations, but the province is actually given, through the National Housing Strategy, funds to maintain and repair. Most of us in this sector are seeing our PFR funds shrunk. I mean, I know we got, I think, 86,000, 87,000 last year and $1 million of repairs that we had to do. It's crazy. We should be able to access the resources to maintain quality spaces that we're required to by law. So can we get CMHC repair and dollars? Can we get that access through either directly applying to CMHC, or can we apply through the province and the province mandating that our social housing, our supportive housing gets a portion of that repair dollars, at least 10%. I think we're actually 20% of the supportive market. So just a side thought. So CMHC annual progress report, really great announcement, 834 units approved. If the statistics are right, only a third of them are built and finished. So what's happening to the others? Will they ever get built? Not sure. Will they require additional money? Are they being held out there in time. So if our goal is 2,300, we're nowhere near there in terms of completion. If the statistics from CMHC are correct, only 1/3 of the funded and approved stuff has been completed. That's scary. Given that we did 80 of them, and I know not all 80, of the 834, we represent 280 in total. So I'm a little worried about what that means nationally.
The story I'm going to tell you of the journey that we've been on, unfortunately, doesn't have a happy ending. For you who don't know a little bit about Karis Disability Services, we are a transfer payment agency, a partner with the Ministry of Children, Community, and Social Services, and we have about 400 residential locations across Ontario and Saskatchewan. About half of those are single-family homes that you would call or consider a group home. We have a range of other services: host family, supported independent living, community access, employment, et cetera, et cetera. But this chat that I'm about to engulf on here is about one of our passions to meet the needs, like Ray just said, of what's needed out there for affordable housing. So this was the vision, was a 20-unit apartment building in the Niagara area. It was going to be B3 capable. So as Bryan alluded to, that's incredibly important, and I think it's a huge gap in our system. It was going to be accessible. It had amenity space for that community to come together, as Ray was just mentioning. Our goal was deep affordability, so people on ODSP could access this themselves. And of course, we had to jump through a bunch of hoops to get zoning and stuff like that. I've kind of framed these next few minutes under this kind of heading that said, what did the system ask of us? Because ultimately, I think that's what it's about. Of what's the system say, hey, what all do you need? What do you need to do? Who do you need to be partnered with? And so I'm going to walk you through how I feel we tried our best to hit all of that, what was asked of us, and then what was the end result. So what was asked of us? Well, we were asked to be invested, to have skin in the game. So we definitely had capital funds committed to this. We had sold other properties to make this project a reality. We committed internal resources from like project management and people resources to make it happen. We developed an internal capital campaign. We were ready to engage our donors. And our charitable foundation was completely on board and was going to support us through this. We were also asked to partner with others. We kind of felt that we hit all the marks on that too. We had a major corporate donor that was willing to donate $1 million plot of land, and that was a phenomenal step forward because we all know in this particular realm, if you don't have land, you don't have a project. You have nothing. We had donors in general through that capital campaign that were ready to step up. We had the partnership of the provincial ministry that we worked with from a support perspective, willing to give us some capital money towards this project. And it was in the 7 digits. And that was amazing. We had the city and the municipality on board, from development charges, from speeding up processes, rent subsidies, etc. And we had the community getting behind us as well. We hosted town halls. We talked to them. We did everything. We did everything we could. We are also asked to partner up with CMHC. So that's exactly what we did. We went for seed funding, which was successful, which was great. We too decided to do the grant only because we looked at the loan piece and went, ugh, that's a lot. So we decided to forego that. We applied for Rapid Housing Initiative Round 1. That was unsuccessful. We had asked the municipality to take us on as one of their municipal projects, That didn't happen, so we went it alone on the project stream. So RHI has kind of those two different elements, and we kind of went our own on the project part. Since that didn't happen, we were automatically put into round 2. Got all excited about that, and that didn't happen either. Then we came to the co-investment fund, which was successful. We did get an allocation, grant and loan, and it was, I'll say, more than $25,000 per door, which was awesome. We were excited about that, but I'll get to a little bit more of that in another slide. We were also asked to continue down the journey. We're asked to make progress. We're asked to show our commitment. So we got housing consultants involved. We had our architect all set up. We had a construction management agreement with a builder. We had design and innovation on our side. B3 is a small comment here, but it's a huge piece of this particular project because that was our goal, is to make sure that when the rubber hits the road, we didn't have to say to anybody, you can't live here. And I think that's one of the learnings that I'll get to, is that unfortunately, the system that we're talking about has this gap for people like Ray that ultimately says, you can't live here. And I'm not sure we've really wrapped our heads around the reality of that. And that's troubling, and I think something that we definitely need to fix. But we were heading for the efficiencies and energy. Because it was rapid housing number 1, it was speed was of the essence because it was a pandemic response. And so we went with a steel wall panel construction that was built in a factory, shipped to the site. So we were ready to rock and roll. We had all the cost consultants in every which way, shape, or form, DC, BA, we had it all, and we went to public tender.
You missed F. I think you didn't get F.
What's that?
You didn't get F.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I guess we didn't start at the very beginning, but the red arrow is significant for the public tender piece. So costs clearly went up. So this is what happened? So clearly we did this in the middle of, in the beginning of, and middle of, and the end of pandemic. Costs came in much higher than expected when we went to public tender. I believe it was in the range of 34 to 40% higher. And that was just clearly something that we had to grapple with. CMHC had no mechanism with which to adapt to those kind of costs. Trust me, we asked many, many times. So that brought us to a bit of a fork in the road. The donors, clearly our plan, we felt, was maxed out in terms of what our capital campaign was going to be able to get. MCCSS funding, the provincial funding that was committed, a phenomenal partnership. It was great to have them on board, but it's fiscally based. So there was an end date to that, and things just weren't moving as quickly as that March 31st end of fiscal was going to be upon us. And then the decision point on RHI 3. Well, RHI 3 was announced. We could go for it. We weren't automatically put into the pool. So we had a choice to make, to walk away from the co-investment fund and take our chances on RHI 3. And if so, and if that was unsuccessful, then to go back to co-investment. Then we were here down to here for $25,000 per door. And that just wasn't going to cut it with our absolute commitment to deep affordability. Okay, I'm trying, Gary. I'm trying. So the results, clearly, the community lost 20 units of a great community that was going to be deeply affordable, that had amenity space, community space, and was going to be able to be in a community where there had been no rental development for 25 to 30 years. It was innovative. It really tried to meet that need of the you can't live here gap that exists. And clearly our partners, they moved on in their interests, and we lost a lot of money. that seed funding went a very short distance for us compared to what we ended up investing. So we learned. We learned that more resources are needed. We learned that the ability to adapt needs to be flexible, that the system needs to be flexible. There's got to be way more and better conversations between different levels of government, clearly. Seed funding, mentioned already. And the idea of filling the gap for those that do not engage in their own homes and have needs that impact the ability to evacuate, that B3. If there's one thing that I hope you walk away with is this gap that exists. Our affordable housing strategy as a nation is built on the assumption that two assumptions, that people engage their own lease with their landlord and that people have the ability to evacuate themselves. Those are two unwritten things that I think are hugely impacting our ability as developmental service organizations to meet that gap. Rena, you're doing an amazing job to do that part in your community, which is awesome. But this needs to be nationalized. Absolutely. We've got to have a solution for that gap. It's got to be a separate stream. It's got to have different solutions that are unlike any other. And I think that's what we ended up walking away with and learning.
I trust you found the presentation by both Bryan Keshen and David Petkau very informative. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. Please keep watching future episodes of the ICC Housing Conference. I'm Lino Fera. Have a wonderful day.